Champions Cup pool stage is complete and it's a mixed bag for URC teams. My name's Mark. Let's talk rugby. Okay, so we have a lot to cover in today's video because we've obviously got to wrap up the pool stages, but also we're going to, look at the draw for the round of 16 as well, which means that I'm not going to spend as much time going through the fixtures from the weekend. We'll just kind of touch on the results, look at the pools, and then move on to the draw. And I have reviews of 4 of the games from the weekend. That's Edinburgh's game, Glasgow's game, Munster's game, and Leinster's game up in the channel if you want to go check those out and have a bit more detail on at least some of the games. Okay, so we're going to look, as I said, start with the results from the weekend, so round 4. And the first game, Friday games, we had Section Paloise, or POW as they're better known in English, versus Vodacom Bulls. And that was POW 24, Vodacom Bulls 26. So the Bulls finishing strongly there. That game kind of bounced between the two teams, with the Bulls finally coming out on top there. On Friday as well, we had Bath Rugby 63, Edinburgh 10. That obviously a more one-sided affair. Edinburgh not really turning up in the game, and pretty easy for Bath in the end there. And then Edinburgh were kind of left sweating on the qualification, and we'll come take a look at that later on. Okay, so next then we're into the Saturday games. Hollywoodbets Sharks finishing strongly, 50 points to 12 for them against Clermont Auvergne. And strangely, Clermont Auvergne not doing well at all through the pool stages. They're a team with, storied history in this competition, especially back from the Heineken Cup days. But this year, just nowhere near, the level that they needed to be. Not really at the races all the way through. But the Sharks at least finishing strongly. But again, I really do wish they would take this competition seriously, because I think they could be, a contender, getting into quarterfinals, semi-finals, and then once they have that under the belt, I think you can see maybe more passion for the competition, permeating their squad, their fans, the whole organization. But at the minute, not there for them, and we'll see how that affects them in terms of the rest of the season. Okay, next then we have Bayonne 13, Leinster Rugby 22. So Leinster really having to dig in again for another win. Still nowhere near the top form. And again in the last 20 minutes they had to come up with something to win the game. They were able to do that. There are positives for them. Set pieces looking better. The defense, for the most part, is looking good, but still that attack is not working. And, at the moment, Harry Burns in there at 10. People are talking about maybe it's time for Prendergast to have a go, because he certainly does have the ability, I think, to really make a backline sing. But for me, at the minute, it's about making the right selection in terms of picking the right option. And he's not quite there yet. I think his defense certainly has improved, but I think overall, my thinking is give him a start or two in the URC and see how he goes. But also, I don't think it's really a personnel issue. Certainly not at 10 for me. I'd be happy with either Harry Byrne or himself in there at 10. I think it's just more the attack itself is not functioning, and I don't think it's down to whoever you're picking at 10. I just think it's a system issue, and that needs to be looked at, and hopefully they do that by the time the round of 16 comes around. Next then, We have DHL Stormers 39, Leicester Tigers 26. So Stormers finishing strongly. And, for me, it's a real pity that they sent that weakened team up to, I think it was Harlequins, right? And they got absolutely trashed in that one. And that really has affected their seeding for the knockout stages, because other than that, they have been, one of the strongest teams in the pool stages. And, that was their only defeat still so far this season. This game kind of went back and forth a bit between the teams as well. Tigers fighting to try and qualify themselves. But the Stormers, in the end, pulling away and coming out on top. Next, then we have, Stade Toulousain or Toulouse as we know them, better, against Sale Sharks, and that was Toulouse 77, Sale Sharks 7. So absolute hammering for Sale there, and we know with them that's always kind of a possibility. That they can kind of they're a team, I think, that can produce a performance, but if they don't have all of their best players and they're not quite in top form, a team like Toulouse, even though they haven't been anywhere near the best through the pool stages, just have that ability to turn things on and get through. Now, whether Toulouse will carry that kind of threat in the knockout stages is still to be seen. But Toulouse 77, Sale Sharks 7, the final result. Then next we have Munster 29, Castre 31. This is basically a shootout for the knockout stages. It was basically winner takes all, and Castre were the winners. Munster, it's another one of these games that went back and forth between the teams. Munster were leading at one stage, and then Castre got themselves a decent lead. Like they were 9 points ahead, 31-22 coming down the stretch. Munster did get a try to make that a one-score game, but then they couldn't produce anything else after that to get themselves over the line. And it would have been, I don't know, because it's weird with Munster. They had a brilliant start to the season, but since about the Christmas period, they've just been going downhill, and this is just another kind of indication of that as well. Missing out on the knockout stages of European, not European Cup, the Champions Cup, because they dropped down into the Challenge Cup, but missing out on the knockout stages of this, for the first time in God knows how long, and it really is kind of sad to see with Munster. Hopefully it's going to be something similar to what we saw at Ulster, where there were kind of growing pains with a new coach. And then, a butterfly, they go into their chrysalis and they emerge, a more beautiful and better team at the end of it. But at the minute, we're not really seeing that. So let's see how they go from here. But yeah, talked about in the build-up that you would expect Munster to win at Thomond Park, certainly, but it's certainly not the fortress that it used to be, and this is another kind of nail in the coffin for them too. They can get back up there to that level, but for me, they at the moment they kind of need too many things to go right for them in games for them to win, and opposition making mistakes, potentially not finishing when they have the opportunity. And then also, Crowley was a bit of a disappointment, honestly. His kicking from the tee was very poor. I think he was at overall Munster at 40% kicking from the tee, and you're gonna struggle in a tight game to win it if you're kicking at such low percentages. So that's certainly a work on for him as well. But Munster 29, Castre 31 to score there. Next then, Gloucester Rugby 14, Toulon 31. So Toulon finishing strongly, going away to Gloucester and getting a win there. And this, again, was another one where it was almost winner takes all. It was in the same pool. It wasn't. This was in Edinburgh's pool, right? Yeah, sorry, the same pool. Edinburgh are in the same pool. Sorry. But there was a possibility of Gloucester winning the game and Toulon getting a losing bonus point, and that's shifting Edinburgh down a further spot than where they finished. And the big thing for Edinburgh really after their poor performance against Bath was that a Toulon win was pretty much a guarantee that they got through to knockout stages. And Toulon obviously not doing it for Edinburgh, but they still delivered for them by getting that win. And Gloucester still one of those teams where, similar to Sale, where they can produce performances, but not quite consistent enough, I think, through the pool stages, and the type of teams that if they get into the round of 16, you're kind of expecting that even if they do make it that far, they're not going to get much further than that. But Gloucester Rugby 14, Toulon 31, the final score there. Next then we have Bristol Bears 15, and then Union Bordeaux Begles 27. So this is a clash of two teams who have been brilliant throughout the pool stages, both playing a lot of running rugby and putting teams to the sword. And it was kind of there was again Bristol had their chances in the game, but Bordeaux just showing why they're the defending champions and why they're favourites, at least for me, to claim the crown again this year. But Bristol still, they're going to be a tough side to face in the knockout stages. But I think it's one of those, as again, kind of look back to Bordeaux a couple of seasons ago, and you can shine in the pool stages and then fall flat in the knockouts. So let's see how Bristol do there. But Bordeaux now, since then, they've obviously gotten more experience at this level. They lifted the trophy last year, and they'll have no fear through the knockout stages, especially given the fact that they potentially, if they can win all of the games, got a home route all the way to the semi-finals. Okay, next then we have Northampton Saints 43, Scarlets 28, and Scarlets looking to kind of finish what was a poor campaign for them with a bit of a bang. And they were actually leading this game at times, but Saints in the end came through over the top of them. And last year's beaten finalists, decent win there for them, and they're going to be, I think, one of the dark horses, I think, in terms of the knockout stages. Again, there's fancy side, but Saints has shown in the last few years that they can make their way through the knockouts. So we'll see how they go. But Northampton Saints 43, Scarlets 28, and then next then we kind of have the fall of another giant. Munster missing out. Now we have like La Rochelle winners. Was it now 3 seasons ago and 4 seasons ago, back-to-back winners of the competition, but they lose at home to Harlequins. So La Rochelle 17, Harlequins 27, the final result there. And yeah, obviously not all is well there at La Rochelle at the moment, and it feels like it's kind of maybe the end of an era in terms of them being in that top bracket and going for the title, because that kind of top bracket of teams generally, as a new team emerge, as Bordeaux Begles did, you inevitably have the fall off of a team that was up at that level before, because not every team can be at that level, and it looks like La Rochelle are the team to happen there. And then it takes a while then to kind of rebuild up to that level as well. So I would expect now next year as well that La Rochelle, they might qualify for the knockout stages, but I'm thinking that the most they'll get is probably a quarter-final, but you can be completely wrong on things like that, but that's just my feeling. La Rochelle 17, Harlequins 27 there. And then finally then we come to Glasgow Warriors 28, Saracens 3, and brilliant performance from Glasgow. Again, there's a full review on the channel if you want to see that. But both sides of the ball, they were excellent. First half, they get 3 tries and they look like they're cruising. They look like, they might actually do a favour for the Hollywoodbets Sharks by just absolutely hammering Saracens and then giving them the chance to qualify, because Saracens had to lose, I think, by more than 58 points because of the points difference between them. But then stalled a little bit second half. Saracens putting them under immense pressure, but the defence looked comfortable all the way through. There was like one moment where they weren't, but they scrambled well and recovered. And then towards the end, then clock in the red, they get over for the bonus point try, and that is the mark of a team that are supremely confident. And I think that's the level that Glasgow are at the minute. So those are the results. Let's have a look at the pools, and then we'll chat a little bit about each of the teams again, and then we will look at the draw for the round of 16. Okay, so let's start out with Pool 1 here. So top of the table, Glasgow Warriors, 4 wins from 4. Bonus points in every game, so maximum 20 points from them, and they're number 2 seeds going into the knockout stages. They've been, Glasgow have kind of been that team where they had the potential to do something like this, I think, for a number of years, but then they had that kind of mental block where they didn't seem to be able to deliver in the big games. And for me, I think that all of that changed when they went to Loftus and they lifted the URC trophy. You could see there was a change in how they kind of set their own standards from there. That was kind of the level they needed to get to, and they weren't happy with falling below that. And we've seen that through the pool stages. This year, that comeback against Toulouse was absolutely amazing. Like 21 points down at half time, and then they come back not only to win, but to win with a bonus point as well. And now the hope is that they can just go as far as they can. They've never been to a semi-final. I think that's going to be corrected this year. And then once you're in the semi-final, your name is in that hat to lift the trophy. It doesn't matter whether you're against like a more fancy side or wherever. You're 2 wins away from lifting the biggest trophy in European club rugby, and that's where they realistically should be putting themselves this year. Next time we have Toulouse, who, like, after a disastrous campaign, like losing 2 of the games, because Toulouse normally just cruise through the pool stages, and they kind of depending on, and then like for them, we talk about Glasgow not having gotten to a semi-final before. For Toulouse, it's almost like their bar is like semi-final at least. They don't always get there every year, but it feels like that's where they're setting the bar for themselves. So I think they can look at themselves as being lucky to get through second place with only 2 wins, but they're there, second place with 12 points. Then with Sale Sharks with 11 points with 2 wins as well. Even though they got absolutely trashed by Toulouse, they're still going through to the knockout stages. Then Saracens, who basically their mission against Glasgow was don't get hammered and you get through, and they were at least able to do that, but it doesn't really fill you with confidence for them in the knockout stages. But they qualifying 4th with 10 points. Then Hollywoodbets Sharks, who kind of woke up towards the end of the pool, but not enough for them to qualify. They finished 5th. They dropped down into the Challenge Cup, and they had 10 points. And then Clermont Auvergne, who were disappointing, just that there wasn't really much heart in their performances all the way through, and we expect more from them. We don't necessarily expect them to be going out and beating everybody every week of the pool games, but we do expect them to produce performances and pick up the odd win here or there at least. But for them, no wins and no points there at the bottom of the pool. On to Pool 2 then. Number 1 there, Bath Rugby. 3 wins from the 4 game. This was, after 2 rounds of this pool, everyone was on 1 win, 1 loss. And it was about the teams that stepped up. And they're one of the teams that stepped up in the final 2 rounds. They finished on 16 points and topped the pool. Then Toulon, another team who kind of, really came back in the last couple of rounds as well. They finished second, 3 wins from the 4 games as well, 14 points for them. Then Castre, that amazing win at Thomond Park, enough to qualify them in 3rd place. 2 wins from their 4 games, 10 points for them. Then Edinburgh, just about scraped through, got hammered by Bath in their final game, and had the kind of the Gloucester Toulon results gone a different way, they might have seen themselves actually pushed down into 5th place. Had Gloucester won and Toulon got a losing bonus point, but they're there, and it's brilliant because they definitely need the experience of having been qualified and then playing in the round of 16. They may not get much further than that, but I think their job then is to make it so that they're appearing more regularly, not just in the Champions Cup itself, but also in the knockout stages. So, that taste hopefully will be enough to motivate them. But yeah, 4th place and 10 points for them. Then Munster finishing in 5th with 8 points. They're dropping down to the Challenge Cup, which may, if they kind of get a bit of form going towards the end of the season, maybe a chance for them to get to semi-finals, finals, or even lift the trophy this season, and it might actually end up being a blessing in disguise. But certainly, looking at their amazing history in this competition, it's a bit of a dark day for them. 1 win from the 4 games, and also losing at home in the final round when they knew that it was do or die for them. And generally, Munster teams of old were able to do, but this team obviously died. And in 6th place, we have Gloucester, 1 win from their 3 games, and they couldn't get it done against Toulon in that final game, and they finished bottom of the pool with 6 points. On to Pool 3 then, and we have Leinster leading the way there in 1st place. They have 4 from 4 wins, but 18 points is not where we expect Leinster to be. But looking at their performances this year, it's where they deserve to be, honestly, because they were certainly off. They've been off in the URC and in the Champions Cup, but they're still able to get those 4 wins. But I think it's again kind of similar to Toulouse. It's the level that the bar is set. They've set for themselves that having won 4 from 4 and only and I say that tongue in cheek, but only gotten 18 points is considered poor performance from them. But for me, there's a couple of things from this. One, they had to dig in and get wins, which is something that the team that plays in the Champions Cup have struggled with over recent seasons in semi-finals or final appearances where they've lost. So that's certainly a boon for them. But 2 is that they absolutely need to find some kind of better form, because having that mental thing in the bank of being able to dig out wins won't matter if they come against one of the really top performing teams who won't leave them in a position where it's a 1-score game with 10 minutes to go. They'll be 2-3 scores behind, and it'll be all she wrote for them. So yeah, Leinster definitely need to improve for the knockout stages. Then 2nd place, Harlequins. Brilliant for them going to La Rochelle and getting that win in the final round and securing that second place for themselves. Most people would have thought that they would have lost that. La Rochelle would have qualified in fourth and Stormers would have finished second, but Harlequins, they can produce results like this. For them, it's more about, can you go on a run of good performances through a knockout stage? They haven't been able to do that, in a long time. And can they do it this year? But 3 wins from the 4 games, 15 points for them. Then Stormers, qualifying third place, 3 wins from 4 from them for 14 points. And it's basically, it all comes down to sending a very weakened side up to Harlequins. And, had they not done that, they probably would have, been vying for top spot with Leinster. Instead, it's third place for them. Leicester then in fourth, qualify with just 1 win and 6 points. And, they I think can really count themselves lucky that, that La Rochelle weren't able to produce in that final game against Quins, because otherwise they would have been the team dropping down into the Challenge Cup. La Rochelle then 5th place, 1 win as well for them. A very poor campaign compared to where they've been. Like, it's only like 3 seasons since they lifted the trophy back to back. So it's a fall from grace for them. Certainly they drop down into the Challenge Cup. Be interested to see how they go there. And, the whole La Rochelle and Munster thing, you think that, that's definitely going to be a thing, in that competition. It's written in the stars, I think. But yeah, 5th place and 6 points for them. And then Bayonne, finished bottom of the table. They give Leinster a hell of a game though in that final game, and that's something, we look at them and we think 4 losses and no match points, but, Stormers had to work really hard to beat them, and then Leinster as well. So they weren't too far off, getting themselves a win or 2 and potentially qualifying as well. So as a team that, finished with no points, I think, it's the closest that any team with no points have, come to qualifying. Next then, the final pool 4. So the defending champions, Union Bordeaux Begles, top there, 4 wins from 4, 20 points from them. Looking brilliant as always, and definitely the team to beat through the knockout stages. Saints then at second place, 3 wins from their 4 games, 16 points from them. And, you're pretty much thinking they're definitely going to get themselves to a quarter final, and if they can do that, then they have the wherewithal to produce a performance, get back to another semi-final, potentially final. Like they're that kind of team now in the last few seasons that, along with Leinster, have kind of been there or thereabouts, but not quite getting their hands on the trophy. So be interesting to see if either of those teams can actually do it this year. Bristol Bears then look brilliant through the first 3 rounds. They won 3 of the 4 games, but that lost to Bordeaux in the final round, and the fact that they didn't pick up bonus points in some of their other games, means that they get pipped for second place by Northampton. And now going into the knockout stages, they're that type of team where on the day can be absolutely brilliant, but at the same time, if they're at home, the opposition will be thinking, we have, if we can perform here, we've actually got a chance. Bulls then, Vodacom Bulls that is, in 4th place, just 1 win from their 3 games, and that in the final round of games as well against Pau. That was enough though to get them through to knockout stages with 7 points. Going to be very interesting to see if they have any kind of interest in trying to progress through this, or if they're going to, throw around the 16 games fingers crossed they don't do that, that they do actually take this seriously, and we'll see, if because again, they're one of those teams where if they can get through a few rounds and they have the ability to, we've seen it in the URC, to get the finals, and you could see them doing it in this competition as well. But this year, their form obviously has been nowhere near it has been in previous seasons. So, like, if they did it this year, it would be absolutely amazing. And then 5th place, then we have Pau, who dropped down into the Challenge Cup. They had 6 points. Bottom of the pool then, 6th, Scarlets. No wins for them, and 3 points is all that they came up with. They had that kind of in, what was it, round 3 of the pool, they had that game against Pau at home where they knew if they won, they had a very good chance of qualifying, and they couldn't get it done. Pau got the win, but even for Pau, it wasn't enough for them to qualify. But yeah, Scarlets, looking at how they've been going this year, we're not going to see them in this competition next year. So it's kind of sad that we're not seeing any of the Welsh teams really performing well when they qualify for this competition. Hopefully, if Cardiff get there for next year, they can change that, and maybe we'll see a Welsh team maybe make the knockout stages. Okay, so that is the pool stages. So now we're going to have a look at the knockout, the round, or what would you call it? The draw. That's it. The draw for the knockout stages. Let me pull it up here. I don't know why they can't just show it to you on the website. They kind of have it on the website, but it's covered by other stuff, so you can only see part of the draw. But let me see if I can pull it up here. Right, there we go. Okay. So the draw, so on the left-hand side of the draw, you can see that at the top there you got Bordeaux versus Leicester Tigers, and the winner of that will play the winner of Toulouse versus Bristol. So that is, France versus England, all the way through there. And then on the bottom side of that draw, you have Bath Rugby versus Saracens, and Northampton Saints versus Castre Oylmpique. So that side of the draw, all English and French teams. And then on the other side of the draw, we have all of the URC teams with a mix of others in there as well. So top there we have Glasgow versus Vodacom Bulls, and they will play the winner of Toulon versus Stormers. So there's at least a possibility Stormers could go to Toulon and get a result of an all URC quarterfinal, and possibly an all South African quarterfinal, which might actually change the attitude of both of those teams. Imagine the Bulls versus Stormers in a quarterfinal of this competition. It would absolutely raise the roof at Loftus, if that was to go ahead. Obviously, the Glasgow are the favourites to kind of come out of that and reach a semi-final. And if they keep their levels going, the way they've been in the competition so far, you would expect them to come through that draw. On the bottom half of this side of the draw, then you have Leinster versus Edinburgh. Again, another all URC clash there. So it means at least that we're guaranteed 2 URC teams in the quarterfinals. And then the winner of that will play the winner of Harlequins versus Sale. And, I think in terms, looking at that, if Leinster win, you would obviously make them the favourites in the quarterfinal. If Edinburgh produce an amazing performance and beat Leinster, they're so inconsistent that in the quarterfinal, I think whoever wins that bottom draw would really fancy themselves to make a semi-final from there. But looking at how the seeding is at the moment, you would expect that for the semi-finals, your lineup would be Bordeaux, on one side to draw from the top half of that, and then Bath from the bottom half. But again, I think, Saints would certainly fancy themselves against either Saracens or Bath in a quarter-final. But so there could be a repeat, another repeat of the final, because they already played in the pool stages, Bordeaux versus Saints. But going on just the seedings, you're looking at it being Bordeaux versus Bath in the semi-final on one side, and then on the other side, Glasgow versus Leinster there. And again, going on the seedings, it would be Bordeaux versus Glasgow in a final, and that would be, be brilliant for Glasgow, but brilliant for the URC as well, just to see, another URC team doing well and going further in this competition. So it's not always just Leinster every year that makes it through. But I think they're the interesting draw. I don't know whether I like the fact that all the URC teams got put together, because again, it means at least guaranteed URC teams through to the quarterfinal, or whether I'd rather that they were split out a bit more so that you could potentially, there's no way there's 5 URC teams in the round of 16, but the most we're going to get into the quarterfinals is 3. Whereas if they were all playing individually, potentially, you could have had 5 of the 8 teams being from the URC in the quarterfinals. But that is the draw. We're finished the pool stages now. The competition, gonna obviously go on a break now. And then when they come back, though, the teams are going to have to hit the ground running to make it further through the knockout stages.